There is such a massive difference between a designed system and an evolved system. Now, evolution is a way of designing something. You just keep making slight improvements through a variety of methods, and you evolve it. And civilization itself has evolved without a larger overarching plan. So, a lot of the things that affect us and control our lives are not things we wanted. We didn't select them. And so the question is, how can we design things correctly? Now, I'm going to talk to you about space usage. In this case, in Bosque Village, I've got tons of space. And I have different pages and videos describing each space. And we're envisioning how those could be in the future. How can we increase their value to be more valuable than an avocado field? Because if we don't increase their value, then they'll become an avocado field. You almost could imagine like a spreadsheet that shows every single space, and it has it listed across the top and as rows and columns both. And look at the compatibility of each space, and change the color of that cell and perhaps a numerical value for different scores, like how compatible are they. For example, a place that is a workshop where you make stuff and it uses tools that are noisy, or any place that has anything noisy, noisy industry of any kind, still light industry. We're probably not going to do any heavy industry. But a forge, a blacksmith shop is noisy, and it should be noisy. That's okay. We can do things actually to dampen the noise within the space as well, to make it more comfortable. But that is a type of industry or function that is compatible with a nightclub or a late night noisy bar. Now, we're never going to have late night noisy bars that can all go all night. It's just, I could do it, it'd be popular, and I'm not gonna. It is outside the scope of the vision of the place. So all night nightclubs aren't going to happen. It just isn't a good use of time and energy. So I think 12 midnight would be the latest we would ever close anything down. And who knows, maybe there's exceptions, and we stay up all night on New Year's or solstice or something. There's always an exception, but we don't want very many. And those exceptions should be used for amazingly excellent purposes, because they're disruptive to the general fluidity and coherence of the space. Anyway, with any two spaces then, you should be able to evaluate their interaction. Obviously, neighboring spaces have specific interactions with other ones, but we also have to consider like kids. Kids always come to my mind as noisy people. Well, they're actually fairly compatible with a variety of areas, and there should be small kids spaces in different locations, and maybe two larger kid spaces, one near the south side and one near the north side, and perhaps a smaller one on the mesa. I don't know, but we have to design for all these different elements to work well together. And so we need to think about food systems, electrical systems, and have maps with arrows and what things flow to where. If we get big deliveries that are heavy, should we bring them up on top of the land so that generally we're moving them downhill on carts and we're not having to push them uphill? Using gravity to our advantage, always considering as number one, water flow, and second, transport. How do all these things fit together? This is landscape design. This is city planning, town planning. And if we document well enough the decisions made, then other people in their own spaces can borrow those values, and they'll implement something very different, potentially. It could look very different, or it could be a copy. But they're going to adjust that to their own climate, their own soil conditions, their own agricultural goals, their own proximity to other places and resources. They're going to design how much transiency they want, what their public parts are versus private parts. All these things got to be figured out. And so that's the exciting thing about looking at all these tiny spaces, is how can we utilize a space for its maximum value and not be struggling, for example, to repurpose it. Now, that will still happen. Even with good design, we're going to have to change things. Things change, buildings change, uses change. But we can also design in a way that allows for more change. For example, if you build a thing with adobe and cob, a wall or something, there's a cost to that. But after you destroy it, if you need to build a new door through it or something, now you got a bunch of dirt you can use, as opposed to a bunch of used bricks or chunks of concrete or something. So using earth to build with is this amazingly fluid thing that allows us flexibility. But in terms of the entire system, we need to think flexibly and not lock ourselves into anything more than we have to. We want maximum freedom for our future options. So caution is advised.